The RotoGrinders Daily Fantasy Football Podcast is presented to you by Yahoo Sports Daily Fantasy. Make sure you check them out again this Sunday. They are running a $500,000 GPP, that's right, $500K, on a $10 entry, 150 entry max. So if you like mass multi-entry, you can find it on Yahoo this week. And my favorite thing, a very flat payout structure. More people are going to win in this GPP than most others. So check it out. It's Yahoo Sports Daily Fantasy.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another edition of the DFS OGs podcast right here on RotoGrinders.com, talking everything Week 3 on the main slate. I am Chris Beermakersfan Prince, joined as always by my boys, my fellow OGs, Notorious and headChopper. Noto, we'll start with you, buddy. How's things? How did Week 2 treat you? None of us won $1 million this week, so we don't have that to go off of. But how was Week 2?
Yeah, interesting week for me. All the sharp people around the industry just got crushed with all the injuries out there, and with the Patriots defense going nuts. But I managed to scrape out a profit, even though I didn't have any Pats D. Just loaded up on the Chiefs, and that kind of helped with that. So 2 profitable weeks in the book. Still working my way up to that $1 million, but maybe we'll get there by the season end.
There we go. Got a bunch of weeks to go. So we're only in Week 3 is the good part of that. So glad to hear that you scraped out a profit. It was a rough week for me. Chop, Week 2, brother. We know it wasn't another $1 million week. How did Week 2 treat you?
Yeah, not particularly good at all. Like you said, and like everybody's crying about on Sunday, the defense not having the Patriots completely sunk you. So I didn't have I had some, but I don't like to load up on a defense. So didn't have that. Had a lot of, like you were saying pre-show, had a lot of Kamara. Those things just don't mix. It happens some weeks. So you just got to kind of lick your wounds and bounce back that next week, man.
Yeah, for sure. I think Pittsburgh was the other one I was very high on, the bounce back spot at home against Seattle. Big Ben gets hurt. Those things are going to happen. But the offense didn't look good while he was in there either. So that's a team you have to worry about moving forward. So just too many mistakes. Had some Patriots defense, but all in all, a rough week. You get off the mat, you dust yourself off, and you move on to Week 3. And that's what we're here to do, covering the main slate as always. Again, if you're looking for Thursday night football, Sunday night football, Monday night football, we'll have you covered over at RotoGrinders with all those. Chop and Big T do a great job on those videos for those showdown slates. So if you're looking for that content, get over to RotoGrinders. We're going to hit on the main slate here and focus on some of these big tournaments. So as always, big money out there on DraftKings, on FanDuel, FantasyDraft running it back, $750,000 tournament over there. So lots of money to be won. So we'll cover the plays. We'll cover the spreads and totals as well, guys. Let's start with Cincinnati and Buffalo, our first game here. Bengals got just run out of their own building by the 49ers. I think that's going to be a defense we're going to want to attack, and I certainly want to do that here this week with a Josh Allen, with a John Brown. The question is, Derek, do we dare play 900-year-old Frank Gore? Saw a bunch of touches, scored a touchdown. We don't know the status of Devin Singletary yet, but it could be down to Gore and TJ Yeldon. So thoughts there in a home tilt with a bad Bengals defense.
Yeah, as for Gore, at a price of $4,400, he's at least going to be interesting if Singletary doesn't end up suiting up. Gore played 70% of the snaps last week, and he should get the goal line work in a pretty good matchup against the Bengals. So I wouldn't rule him out, but unlike the first 2 weeks, I think it's a really good week to pay up at running back, kind of get back to team jam him in, which we've been doing for so many years. So I have more interest into the passing game. Allen's still too cheap on DraftKings, only $5,900. He scored 20 and 22 fantasy points the first 2 weeks, and he's probably left some points on the field as well. Really good matchup against Cincinnati. You can pair him up with John Brown. He finished with 7 for 72 last week, and Allen missed him on a long touchdown. We like the efficiency that we've seen from him. We like the consistency that we've seen from him, and he's still too cheap on DraftKings as well. He's only $5,500 over there, $5,900 on FanDuel, which is really good price point. So I like pairing up Allen and Brown. I'm not going to be buying into Beasley. I know he had the big game, but he had a 50-yard catch. I don't think that's going to be a sustainable week in and week out. And then probably have a share or two of Frank Gore if Singletary ends up missing the game. For Cincinnati, it's pretty ugly. Tough spot on the road against a very good Bills defense. You mentioned they couldn't get anything going against the Niners. I saw a stat today that their yards before contact for the running backs is actually negative. They're the only team in the NFL, and it's not even close. So Mixon didn't look healthy last week. Don't want any part of him. I suppose you could look to Boyd and Ross. I mean, they're going to be trailing in this one. They're probably going to be forced to air it out. Ross has been very good. He did catch that 66-yarder, late in the game, so I wouldn't, put a ton of stock into his box score. But he's got some deep play potential. Boyd's going to get a lot of those shorter targets that are good for, PPR. But for the most part, I just have more interest in the Bills.
Yeah, I'm with you. Cincinnati been a good story. That likely playing from behind. Ross still looks probably too cheap. Chop 5,100 on DraftKings compared to 6,500 for Boyd. So how high are you on Josh Allen, John Brown? The Frank Gore question, are we even going there this week? I tend to be more with Derek. I think there's too many other running backs to go with. And then interest level in the Cincinnati side of things.
I'll start with Cincinnati. I don't want to play Cincinnati. I didn't play John Ross in this last spot at home, and sat back and cried while the Donkeys got paid off there at the last drive of the game when he catches that. I don't think he's a particularly good wide receiver, so I'm going to not play John Ross more than I'm going to play him. So I'm not going to play him. Bengals are weird because they laid an egg against the Niners at home, but the week before they looked like they actually went up to Seattle and put up a bunch of points. I don't know, man. I don't know what to think about them, but I don't want to take them against Buffalo. Buffalo looks good. Josh Allen's always a threat to break the slate as a quarterback. He's got that much upside, but with that upside, he also has downside. He's fine. John Brown's can catch a bomb. Frank Gore, if Singletary's ruled out, I actually want to look at Frank Gore for I don't play much cash games, but I'd say he would be a cash game play at this price tag because I think the running back in this offense, whoever it is, if he gets most of the snaps, the running back in this offense could be pretty good. So Frank Gore could get into the end zone a couple times if Singletary's out. So I don't mind Frank Gore. And then if you really need to punt your tight end, Dawson Knox is not a terrible play. Now, in tournaments, you probably want to look for the Kelseys and the Kittles. But, for cash games, a lot of people will say, you should probably save that tight end unless there's a really Kelsey or Kittle or one of the elites is underpriced. If not, then you save that tight end. Well, this guy's dirt minimum on DraftKings. Dawson Knox, he's going to get a few looks from Josh Allen.
All right, let's take a look at the spread. We got Buffalo -6 at home, total of 44. Chop, any thoughts on either of those?
Give me Buffalo. They better win by a touchdown. Come on now.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. There is some juice on Cincinnati at that +6, but I think Buffalo's look good going home. I think they should be able to handle the Bengals. Derek, thoughts? -6 or 44 on either of these?
Yeah, I mean, that should be a good spot for the Bills. They're 2-0. Next week they got the Patriots, so both teams could be undefeated in that division rivalry. But maybe this is a trap game. Maybe they're looking forward to next week. They think they can just take over the Bills. I'll still take the Bengals. I'll still take the Bills, but I don't feel great about it.
All right, next game for us. We have one of those massive spreads. If you haven't looked into things this week yet, Dallas at home here against Miami. 21.5-point favorites here, and I don't think this line is done. I think we could get up to 23, potentially 24 by the time we get to Sunday here. So, Chop, we'll start with you. You're the Dallas guy. Tough blow, losing Michael Gallup, obviously, but home favorites against just a bad team. I mean, they've been terrible. I mean, two bad losses to Baltimore and New England here. So, what do we do with Dallas? One side of the coin is you load up on Dak, the passing game. You load up on a Zeke. Or do you just worry that they just hammer this team and then go into cruise control? And even that, you may get your value out of these guys in a half and three quarters. So I think this is a pivotal spot. Obviously, we want to play Dallas. What's the right course of action here against the Dolphins?
Well, the number one play in this game clearly has to be the Dallas defense, right? I mean, the Dolphins are just terrible on all. I mean, they're tanking so hard. We said it last week, but we knew what was going to happen, but yet we didn't really load up on the Patriots like we should have. This team is terrible. They put a bad product on the field on purpose. I mean, I don't know there's only so much of that you could watch last week, but if you stay tuned in the second half, you saw Kalen Ballage out there trying to trying to catch passes by ducking, and just like it was just terrible, man. So they're really not trying at all. Dallas defense, it'd be hard pressed to not see them having a fantastic game here. On offense, yeah, I think you go with the main suspects, the Dak, Elliott, Cooper, with Gallup out now for several weeks. I wouldn't mind having a share of Devin Smith, but I don't expect any more than four targets for him. But that one of those could be a 70-yard to the house. So I'll go that route. And yeah, I just think but I don't think they're going to be world beaters on offense because, like you said, they don't have to be. So I think the defense is the way to go, and you try to get you a long touchdown on one of those receivers, and otherwise, I think you can fade Miami. But with that being said, if you're going to take somebody, Preston Williams at least is cheap and he's getting some targets, and they will pass. They're going to have to pass for 4 quarters. So if you had to twist my arm on Miami, I would say Preston Williams might be a fair play.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. We'll see if Albert Wilson's going to play or not. But, I mean, generally you stack a team, you want to run it back. It's just hard to get excited about any of these Miami guys. Like you said, Balaj just ducking out of the way on a target. I mean, if you didn't see that, go watch it. And then the one bounces off his hands. New England walks into the end zone. So this team could be historically bad. Derek, what are you doing here? Is it Dak in the passing game? Is it Zeke? Is it just simply play the Dallas defense? I like the Devin Smith call. And anything to run it back with the Miami side.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever paid over 4K for a defense on DraftKings, but I might have to break that rule this week. 4,300, but they could easily be, 20-plus fantasy points in this spot. We know they have a good defense, and obviously the Dolphins aren't trying. As far as their offense, I mean, look, the Dolphins have given up over 1,000 yards. They've given up over 100 points so far this season. Even if the starters only play 3 quarters, you got to think they're going to put up 30-plus points. And if that's the case, there's going to be a lot of fantasy goodness to go around. Probably won't be paying up for Amari Cooper, but I do like the Devin Smith call. He's only 3,400 on DK. I got to think Zeke is in a really good spot. Got a full workload of snaps and touches last week, 76% of the snaps, 25 touches in their win last week. And then obviously you can pair them up with the defense for that correlation. So I don't mind some pieces for the Cowboys. I do think you're probably going to need somebody from their offense, and just don't know who to bring it back with. Like you guys mentioned, Preston Williams, was pretty good last week, but Devontae Parker, I think he was shadowed by Stephen Gilmore. So, maybe he gets going a little bit in this one, but unless Fitzpatrick gets benched for Rosen, then I don't really have a ton of interest in the Dolphins.
All right, Derek, 21.5 points. Do you dare take the Dolphins into points? Do you dare lay that many points with the Cowboys? 47.5 the total here. Any strong leans either way?
I know it's only been 2 weeks, but it looks like no spread is too high this season. I mean, these teams that have no interest in winning, I'll take the points. I don't feel good about it, but I'll take the points.
I'm going with Dallas here. I don't
Sorry,
see
that's
Miami,
what I meant, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see Miami going in and scoring at 17, 24 points here. And I think Dallas easily gets to 35, 40 points and does whatever they want to do here. So some may say you're crazy, take the points. That has not worked so far with the Dolphins. I'm going to go with Dallas here. Chop, 21.5. What are you doing with that, or 47.5 on the total?
Well, I wanted to get all cute with it and take the under, thinking Miami, everybody will go with Dallas and Miami's not going to score very much. But I got to go with Dallas just because this new offensive coordinator is just lighting things up on that team. And so I don't see them being stopped. I think they could actually hit that 47 themselves, 47 and 48 themselves if they really wanted to. So I'm going to take Dallas.
All right, let's move to our next game. Denver traveling to Green Bay. Packers -8 at home, 42.5 the total here. So Green Bay 2-0, been getting it done. Started off hot, kind of slowed down there towards the second half. Really didn't do much of anything after a 21-0 lead. The worry here, Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if he's 100% healthy here. This looks like a good spot. I think the story here, though, Derek, is Aaron Jones. Looked great against a good Minnesota defense. Now gets Denver, who hasn't been great against the run. So that would probably be my preferred route here. Some of the receivers are cheap. We saw Allison come to life. MVS is only 4,300 on DraftKings, so you could certainly go that way. Adams is always in play. I think Aaron Jones, my favorite play here, paired with the Green Bay defense. What says you, Derek?
To be honest, I don't have a ton of interest in this game as a whole. Both these teams want to run the ball. They're both going to be fairly slow-paced. I don't mind the Jones call, but we've seen a lot of Jamal Williams so far. It's basically been a 60-40 time split. We know Williams is the much better pass protector of the two. So, I mean, they are big favorites, which does help Jones, but it does worry me a little bit. Devontae Adams is always going to be viable in tournaments. He played pretty well against Rose last week. Slightly better cornerback matchup this week. He'll get Harris for the Broncos, but I mean, the Broncos have a ton of talent on defense, and they have a good defensive-minded coach. So I do think they will start picking it up on that side of the ball. MVS is probably going to be my preferred cheap option. When it comes to these receivers, only for 4,300, 12 targets through 2 weeks, 87% of the snaps. But overall, not a ton of interest there. And then the Broncos, I mean, they've struggled so far against Oakland. They struggled against the Bears. They will be trailing here. So if you want to look at, Emmanuel Sanders, he's still only 4,800 on DraftKings. Sutton's a guy that, a little bit more of a deep option there at 4,500. So they feel a little underpriced in a game where they could be airing it out. But I kind of expecting a low scoring, Packers defense type of game here.
Yeah, I think Green Bay's fine, really, really slowing it down. And one thing to keep an eye on, Devontae Adams, I was high on against Xavier Rhodes last week. He did okay, got the job done at the end of the day. As far as Denver goes, looks like Chris Harris is not just going to be a slot corner anymore. Followed Allen Robinson around everywhere he went. So you could see the same thing here against Devontae Adams. So I'm going to tend to go with the cheaper receivers here. I agree. MVS will be the guy nobody wants to play coming off of last week. So if I do go Packers receivers, I think Marquez Valdes-Scantling, intriguing. Chop, your thoughts here? Packers big home favorites. What way do you lean? Aaron Jones, the passing game, none of the above. And what do we do at Denver? Emmanuel Sanders has looked great. The rest of that team, kind of been a mess.
Yeah, with Green Bay, I was, encouraged for sure at what they did last week against Minnesota. That's a tough defense, and they found a way. Aaron Rodgers found a way to get the ball downfield. He had guys breaking open, so I don't see any reason why they can't have some success this week again against Denver. Denver's probably got to be a little bit heartbroken after the way they lost that game on Sunday. So I think they'll get on the road and they'll have a harder time. They'll have a hard time here against Green Bay. I kind of like the passing game here. And I'm gonna buck that trend and go Devontae Adams. I know he's gonna. I mean, I've just never seen anybody really shut the guy down. I know he had a rough first week, but with a new offense and all that other stuff, I'll give him benefit of the doubt. He just always seems to get loose at some point. So I like me some Devontae Adams this week. Denver, my preferred play on that team would probably be Phillip Lindsay, who's going to be in there more catching balls when they get behind, and I'm pretty sure they'll be behind in this game. They're certainly not going to pound Royce Freeman into this defensive line. That's a futile effort. So I think Lindsay would be my preferred Denver play to run it back with, but I don't mind that Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams connection.
All right, -8 or 42.5, Chop. You taking either of those?
No, I'm staying away from both those. Those are tough numbers right there.
Yeah, over that touchdown, at -7, I'm probably locking in Green Bay. -8, maybe a little bit too high there, but also don't want to take Denver in the points here. So maybe an under game, 42.5, kind of a lower number, but I could see a 21-10, 21-13 type game here. So we'll see. That being said, I should take Green Bay in the spread, but I think under for me. Derek, any thoughts? -8 or 42.5?
I think I'd lean the under as well. It looks like it's kind of getting bet that way too.
All right, let's move on to our next one. Inside the Dome in Indianapolis, we have the Falcons and the Colts, two Dome teams. Falcons coming off an emotional home win against Philly, went right down to the wire in that one. The Colts coming back home. So, Derek, let's go to you here. Which Dome team are we rostering in this one? We favoring the Falcons or you like the Colts here at home?
Anytime we get these low spreads in the Dome, I think there's a potential for shootout. So I do like this game a little bit. As for the Colts, I think you want to target their running game. I know Brissett had 3 touchdowns, but he only threw for 146 yards. Colts are currently 4th in run play percentage this season, and they have one of the best offensive lines in football. So expect Mac to get a bunch of rushing attempts here. He's already racked up 45 in the first 2 games, also has 3 targets, and he's only 5,800. So I think you kind of get a workhorse back at a discounted price point. T.Y. Hilton's been very good so far, and he's always in play in Indy, but I think the touchdown rate is going to come down a little bit moving forward, especially in a low-volume passing attack. And after him, Deion Kane saw the most snaps with Paris Campbell catching the touchdown, but he only played like 25% of the snaps. So I would take a shot on Kane in large field tournaments at main salary on DraftKings, but really nothing to like for me outside of Mac. And then on the other side, just continue to play Julio. He's caught a touchdown in 6 straight games. He already has 21 targets through the first 2 games. I know Ridley had the big game on Sunday night, but I kind of hate targeting guys that, we don't really expect to have big games, and they have a big outing and his ownership goes up, his price goes up. So I don't really want to hop on that. I would much rather play Julio here. And I'll be avoiding the running backs. They're pretty much stuck in a time share. And, Freeman got a little bit more of the work last week, but opportunity cost of the position is just so high that I can't make a case for Freeman or Smith.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, the Colts run D's been pretty solid. Falcons, neither guys look great, so tough to get excited there. I'm fine with Julio or Ridley. You get a $2,000 discount on Ridley. So either guy to me is in play. Chop, your thoughts here, Falcons and Colts.
So, Derek hit on the, the basic stuff right there. So I'm not going to echo him. So I'll just throw some guys in there that I think could be interesting for the Falcons. Yeah, of course, Julio's a badass, but Colts keep everything in front of them. That's their defensive philosophy. So maybe this is a big Sanu week. Maybe he already gets peppered with a decent amount of targets and plays a decent amount of snaps. So maybe a short passing game really suits him this week. Maybe we get a big game out of Sanu. But obviously Julio's, the guy you really want to go. But for 3.9, maybe Sanu. And on the flip side, Mac is obviously good. I like T.Y. a lot this week, I think. He's catching touchdowns on good defenses. So now he's back home finally, and it's probably the weakest defense they faced. Oh, man, I could just see this guy getting a play action and beating somebody for 70 yards. I love T.Y. this week. With Funchess being out also, I think you can look to old Chester the Molester. Chester Rogers got a little handful of targets last week. I think I wouldn't mind Chester Rogers this week. So I go something like that. Being back at home finally with Indianapolis, I think it's going to do wonders for this this passing game.
Any interest in Brissett? It's only 5,200 at home.
Man, I have to really sit down and look at the quarterbacks and the pricing in depth. But typically, he usually doesn't seem like a guy who has enough upside. But at 52, that's an interesting price. So I'll take a look at the prices when and compare him to everybody else. But right offhand, I'm going to say not quite enough upside for me.
Yeah, I agree. He's giving you a pretty solid floor, 16, 18 so far through 2 games. So he's kind of getting there, what you want to do in cash games. So he's an option. I just think there's better plays. So agree with you there. Let's take a look at the line. We got Colts -1 at home, -120 on that one. So some juice on the Colts. Total sitting at 47, Chop. Any strong leans in either of those?
I think the Colts really were a Super Bowl contending team with Andrew Luck. And I think that we're seeing that now, that this is a good, solid team, even with Brissett. So I think at home, I think they beat the Falcons. So
Derek,
I'm giving them points.
Derek, -1, 47. Strong thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Chop. I think they controlled the line of scrimmage in this one, so I'll take the Colts.
Yeah, the Colts have played well, so I'm with you guys. We'll do a clean sweep. Probably should have won that first week against the Chargers. So I think people are discounting them, and the Falcons seem to play better at home. Coming off that emotional win, maybe they're drained here, and line seems a little bit too low. So clean sweep for the Colts. Next game, maybe the game of the week. I'm really excited about this one. Baltimore traveling to Kansas City. The 2 offenses that are just winning people money are Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson-led offenses here. Now they face off against each other here, Derek. So which guy do we play? I know we're going to get into some cheaper quarterbacks, and we have a lot of injuries we haven't gotten to yet at the position. But just looking at those two, 76 and 7,000, the top 2 price quarterbacks on DraftKings here, strong lean there. And then the rest of this game, I think it's fascinating. So what are your thoughts here on Ravens and Chiefs?
Yeah, by far my favorite game of the week, similar to the Chiefs and Raiders last week. I know Oakland let us down a little bit, but I don't expect that to be the case this week. And the old fantasy debate, do defenses matter? I don't think they do in this one. I expect the Chiefs to roll. Implied total over 30 points against an elite Baltimore defense. Mahomes, 549 air yards last week. That was a career high. They didn't even score a point in the second half. It's hard not to play him here, even without Tyreek Hill. He still has plenty of weapons. We saw Demarcus Robinson just have that breakout game. We saw Mecole Hardman. He probably should have had a breakout game if that touchdown didn't get called back. And then you obviously have Travis Kelce. So A ton of options to pair him up with. The situation to monitor in terms of injuries. Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy both questionable. If they end up being out, then you can play Darwin Thompson. It basically becomes a free square at that point. So a lot to like for Kansas City. I think a lot to like on the Ravens as well. Lamar, after posting 324 passing yards, 5 touchdowns in week 1, bounces back with 272 and 2 touchdowns in week 2 with 120 rushing yards. We know they're going to have to score points to keep up with this Chiefs offense. I like pairing him up with Marquise Brown. Went from playing 13 snaps in week 1 to 13 targets in week 2 with 65% of the snaps. He's going to be the number 1 in this offense. And obviously Mark Andrews is a big play guy as well. So love this game. I think you can stack both sides, take some shots with Mahomes as your quarterback and take some shots with Lamar. I think it's going to be just a perfect game overall. No issues with anyone really.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys are in play. DraftKings priced Hardman and Robinson up 5,000, 5,200. Marquise Brown up to 5,900. Let's not forget about Sammy Watkins. I think he's an interesting bounce back candidate. We saw Robinson have the big game. We saw Hardman score, had another long touchdown called back, or he would have had 2 touchdowns. Sammy still got 13 targets in that game. Only 6 for 49, but he may be the forgotten guy here. And a quick note on FanDuel, Marquise Brown only 6,100, so cheaper than Hardman. Demarcus Robinson up to 6,700 on FanDuel. So Brown really stands out as a value on FanDuel. Chop, what's not in play in this game? Chiefs and Ravens.
Everything's in play, and you just hit on a pricing on FanDuel that was super low. If you look at Yahoo, he's actually priced up Marquise Brown like in the elite range, man. Once you start creeping up to like $25, that's a big price tag over there, and he's right around there. So they got him priced properly. Yeah, everybody's in play. I'll just say that if I'm choosing one of these quarterbacks, it's Lamar Jackson, and it's not even close because there's 100 yards rushing upside you just don't get that, and that's just too valuable. So I'm choosing Lamar over Mahomes. If he's active, Damian Williams will be one of my favorite DraftKings running backs to take. He's already getting a lot of targets, and they certainly won't be able to run LaShawn McCoy into this defensive front. So he'll have a ton of checkdowns in this game. So prefer Jackson. I like Damian Williams quite a bit, and all these receivers and tight ends are, just fire them up, man.
Yeah, and we'll keep an eye on the injuries there in the backfield for Kansas City. Williams, a knee contusion. I think he'll be okay. LaShawn McCoy went for an MRI on his ankle, no significant damage. So we'll see if he's in there. If one of those guys is out, Darwin Thompson enters the picture at just 3,000 as a viable play. So,
man, the nerds would just have an orgasm, man. Darwin finally gets to see the field.
Oh, people do love some Darwin Thompson. I love some Darwin too, but you're right. People will go nuts on that one. So let's take a look at the spread here. We got Kansas City at home, minus 7-point favorites here. Total of 55 here. Chop, thoughts on either of those?
Man, I got to take the 7 points here and go with Baltimore. It seems like it's just way too tight of a game to give up a touchdown.
Agreed. I think Baltimore wins this game. So I will gladly take the 7 with them. May even dabble a little bit on the money line, but I think they go in and win here. Total 55. I think both teams can score points, but I feel better about the Baltimore plus 7 and a little bit on the money line. Derek, thoughts here, spread or total? Chiefs and Ravens.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about the Ravens plus 7. Feel pretty good about the over. I think a lot of big plays going to be made in this one, so I agree with you guys.
All right, moving right along. Next game, Raiders and Vikings. Raiders coming off that shellacking by the Chiefs. Look good in week 1 and get destroyed in week 2. So we'll see how they respond hitting the road here. Minnesota, tough loss. They fought back in that game in the second half. Just came up a little bit short, but in a good spot going home here. And how good has Dalvin Cook been? I mean, my good Green Bay's defense looks really good, but Dalvin Cook, it did not matter. Had another big day here. Still only 7,800. Derek, is he a must-play here in week 3?
Yeah, my hope is that everyone will see that big price jump and have a little bit of a sticker shock. But, yeah, one of my favorite running back plays on the board. He's been a workhorse back, 70% of the snaps, 20-plus carries in both games. He's obviously going to have work in the passing game as well. And, it's just worth noting, Cousins only threw the ball 32 times last week, and they were trailing the entire game against the Packers. So they want to run. Their first in run play percentage this season. no reason to get off of Dalvin Cook, right now. You could easily pair him up with the Vikings defense. We know Derek Carr, he makes a lot of bad decisions, especially last week against the Chiefs. Not a ton of interest in the passing game. Thielen and Diggs, they'll have their big games here and there, but it's just such a low volume passing attack that I just can't make an argument to play them outside of big tournaments. And then for the Raiders, Josh Jacobs just didn't have a ton of work since they were playing from behind. We kind of talked about that a little bit last week. We were interested to see what he was going to do when the Raiders were trailing. Jalen Richard kind of came in and stole a lot of his work. Tyrell Williams, he's been dealing with the hip injuries, probably going to draw the coverage of Xavier Rhodes, so we don't really want to play him in this spot. I think Darren Waller is the guy that I would look to. He's basically played every snap so far. He's had 15 targets already. We know the Vikings, the one position that they do struggle against a little bit is tight end. So I like Waller, and then I'll bring it back with Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, we got to keep an eye on those injuries you mentioned. Tyrell Williams, Josh Jacobs also dealing with a groin injury. So if he were to be out, you got Washington and Richard both at 3,000 on DraftKings. Could be some nice value there. Chop, thoughts here, Raiders and Vikings.
Yeah, the Vikings. Derek stole my thunder. I was going to give you a stat, or one of the few stats I can
Bring it.
come up with.
We still want some chop stats. What do you got?
Through 2 weeks, I find it hard to believe. Actually, through 2 weeks, Kirk Cousins has only completed 22 passes, and like Derek said, that was with just trailing from the get-go last week. Only completed this offense has totally taken Cousins, Thielen, and Diggs out of the equation, and I don't think you can play them, especially not in a spot where they're at home against the Raiders. So they'll definitely run the ball here. So Dalvin Cook all the way in this game. God, man, if you really want to get cute with it, and you really would be getting cute, but you can think about Alexander Madison, who's, I think, the clear number 2. He's super cheap. This game gets to be a 3-touchdown game. Maybe they give Dalvin's a few extra possessions off, and Madison gets in there, and I think he's just as good in the long run. So you can go that route. For the Raiders, the whole thing with Tyrell is gonna swing me. If he plays, I'll play some Tyrell. If he's out, then I'll look for Grant or Renfro. But those aren't guys I want to touch if Tyrell plays. And Waller's fine. And I think I'm avoiding the running backs this week, so that's where I sit with that.
Yeah, Cook for me, the Vikings passing game is interesting, but tough to get too excited about that. And then Darren Waller for me on the other side. We'll see what happens with those injuries. All right, Chop, minus 8.5 here for the Vikings at home, 43.5 with some juice on the under. Any strong leans on either of those?
Yeah, I'm going below out here. I think Vikings blow them out.
Which, they did week 1 against a Atlanta team that's better than the Raiders. Minnesota generally very good at home, specifically on the defensive end of things. So no strong take for me, but that would be my lean as well as the Vikings minus 8.5. Derek, you like either of those, the line or the total?
Yeah, the Raiders won their Super Bowl week 1. I don't expect much from them at any point moving forward. I like the Vikings minus 8, and then don't mind the under here. I think the Raiders are going to struggle to score, and we know the Vikings want to run the ball, so don't mind the under either.
Yeah, West Coast team coming east, early 1 o'clock kickoff. We know that's had its issues in the past as well. So Vikings, clean sweep. Next game, another one of those massive spreads. You guys, 23 is where this line sits as of right now. New England at home against the Jets. We know Sam Darnold out with mono. Trevor Siemian announced out for the season today. That awful leg injury last night. That looked nasty. So was not shocked to see him out for the year. Luke Falk, who, Chop, I know you're very familiar with. We'll get to you in a minute. But do the Jets have any hope here, Derek? Can they do anything here? We saw Le'Veon Bell get his numbers. Outside of that, it was pretty ugly for the Jets. In New England, 23-point favorites. What route do we go this week? Is it more Antonio Brown? Is it Sony Michel? Any strong leans on the Patriots here? Just too many weapons for us to play in DFS.
Yeah, for the Jets, it's pretty ugly. They have the lowest implied total since 2013 at 11 points this week. Falk, he's obviously not that important. He's not even available on DraftKings. So I don't really know what I want to do here. Le'Veon Bell, he's going to get a lot of dump-offs. I think he saw 10 targets last week, 21 carries as well. But it's just a spot where I don't want to trust this offense. They could get down early and easily pull their starters. Anderson and Crowder both had, some nice catches in the second half with Falk at quarterback. But I don't think I want to play anyone here, especially against a much improved Patriots defense. And then on the other side, I don't know what I want to trust there either. Antonio Brown, it sounds like league officials met with the second accuser for 10 hours today. I don't know what you could talk about for 10 hours, but so that's a long time. I'm interested to see what happens with him moving forward. As long as he's active, I don't think you can trust anyone in this passing game. Brown only played 33% of the snaps, but they force-fed him the ball when he was in there. Then you got Gordon and Edelman. Brown's obviously going to cut into their target share. As far as the running backs go, it's hard to trust Michelle on a PPR site like DraftKings. He's had 0 targets through 2 weeks, 0 broken tackles as well. So I just don't really love anything in this game outside of the Patriots defense.
Have you guys seen the Antonio Brown fart video? And the
saw
guy that's suing him for $11,500 for – like, what the hell is happening with Antonio Brown? Like, the guy, it's just something different every single day. So, my goodness. I mean, thank God I'm not getting charged for dropping farts on people. I'd be broke. Chop, we need that whole million, man. Vegas, I dropped a couple farts on them elevators. Everyone would have been suing me. So
my kids, they'd clean me out, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Being a parent can be really challenging. Child and Family Resource Network focuses on connecting pregnant parents and those with kids under the age of 5 with free support services to help them on their parenting journey. Everyone deserves someone they can turn to for help with parenting. Visit childandfamilyresourcenetwork.org today.
We'd be in the poorhouse. So unbelievable. So Chop, same questions. I mean, New England can beat you in so many ways here. Any strong takes on anybody. I just think they could spread it out so many guys. So this game more of a hands-off for me. You could see some backups in here pretty quick. And Derek nailed it with the Jets. I mean, couple good plays here and there, but hard to really get excited about anybody on that side of the ball either.
Yeah, I'm completely in agreement. I can't this is a game I probably will have 0 exposure to, and I just don't see it. The Patriots had put up a ton of points here this past week, and there was not one offensive player you would look at and go, yeah, I really would like to have that guy on my team. No, they were all just spread out. And if you twisted my arm in this entire game, I would say James White is my guy on a PPR site like DraftKings. And other than that, too many weapons. They can go anywhere at any time, and they're going to blow them out. So, and the Jets are just totally off for me. I don't want any part of their passing game against this defense with that quarterback. Lev Bell, I mean, he's too expensive just to eat up 8 or 9 checkdowns. I need a little bit. I need to get in the end zone for that price tag, and I don't think he's getting in the end zone. So I'm out on that game pretty much.
Yeah, and some people and a lot of weeks, this would be the way I would look at it is just maybe just play Tom Brady and encompass everything. The problem is he's 6,600 and you have Lamar Jackson only 400 more, Mahomes 1,000 more, and cheaper options, Dak, Deshaun Watson. I don't know that Brady's the answer either. Been good so far through 2 games, but if anything, that would be the way I would go. But really hard to justify paying 66 for Brady when you can just go up and get Lamar Jackson at 7,000. So let's get to the spread, guys. 23. Again, I think this one could climb to 24 here. Chop, you laying the 23 here, or are you taking the points with the Jets?
It would be hard for me to imagine that the Jets keep this thing remotely close. I think their best possibility at hanging within this spread is a last 2-minute spread busting touchdown to drop it from 30 to 23 or something like that. So I'm going to take the Patriots.
I feel better about the Cowboys blowing out Miami than I do about this one. I agree that I think the Jets can at least hang here. At least you have a Le'Veon Bell, Robbie Anderson, guys that can play. Where Miami, they don't have anybody. So I could see the Jets keeping it close enough where even if New England's up 28, they score late, like you said. So not that I want to take the Jets with the points. I just don't know about laying the 23 here with New England. 44, I'd probably go the over. New England could do that on their own, and the Jets can at least score 10, something in that case. So probably the over for me, the way it would go. Derek, any strong picks here? Minus 23 or 44 on the total.
Do you guys remember what the Patriots total was last week? I remember we said that we needed the Dolphins to score a field goal for them to hit the over, and I think that would have made the difference, and they didn't score the field goal. Anyway, I don't mind the over here. I think the Pats could get there themselves. I think the Jets might score something. They got to move the ball somewhat. So, I'll take the over. I don't feel great about the 22.
All right, last early game for us, then we'll hit the 5 afternoon games, a much better later slate here than what we had in the 3-gamer last week. So that'll be a nice little I can't even figure out what I'm trying to say here. Nice little tournaments there on the 5-gamer. But let's finish off here the early games. Lions and Eagles, Derek. Lions coming off a home win against the Chargers. Philly, tough loss in Atlanta here. I think the big story, injuries. The Philadelphia receiving core, Jeffrey and Jackson, questionable here, not sounding good. So we saw Ertz get about 1,000 targets in that game. Clearly he'll be in play, but parse through Nelson Aguilar, Matt Collins, J.J. Arthega, Whiteside. We got to say it right. Or the nerds, as Chop likes to call them. I don't need anybody tweeting at me that I said it wrong. So Arthega, Whiteside. Derek, any of those guys standing out as options for you this week?
DFS is funny. I played Showdown. Obviously, I'm sure all of you did on Sunday night. And made my lineup like an hour before the lineup's locked. Played Goddard because he was really cheap. And then I logged in right when lineup's locked to see his ownership and saw a little questionable mark next to his name. I literally checked Twitter 30 times to try to get an update on Dallas Goedert. Nobody cared if he was playing or not, but I was invested. Obviously, he didn't play. So, yeah, definitely keep an eye on the injuries. I think Aguilar is going to be very popular if Jeffrey and or Jackson are unable to suit up. Probably not going to take too many chances on Arthega, Whiteside, or Matt Collins, but I think it's a great spot for Zach Ertz. So he's just going to get loaded with targets in this one. Probably not going to play Wentz because he doesn't have a ton of weapons. And then the running backs are tough to trust right now. After 2 weeks, Sanders has 45% of the snaps, Sproles 32, and Howard 23. Sanders would be my most favorite, but again, opportunity cost of running back is very high. So not wanting to trust anyone there. Now on the Lions side of the ball, we've seen the Eagles secondary just get torched. McLaurin in week 1, and then last week Ridley and Julio both got loose. So I have a bunch of interest in Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones. I think Golladay is going to garner a lot more ownership after that big game last week. But Marvin Jones, don't forget about him. He's only 5K. He's got a ton of upside here. And you can also look at T.J. Hawkinson. After a quiet week 2, I think a lot of people will be off of him, but he's still 3,500. He's a big-time playmaker and should see quite a few targets in a game where they're expected to be trailing.
Yeah, I like the Hawkinson call. Just the recency bias. Everybody was crowning him the next Gronk and Kelsey, and then back down to earth here because he is a rookie tight end, and that's going to happen. So agree, though. I think Philadelphia's secondary is where you really want to attack this team, and Stafford's looked pretty good through 2 weeks. So Chop, thoughts here on Lions and Eagles?
Yeah, for the Lions, I'm with you on the Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones train, but I want Golladay. I know the big game, and maybe that drives more ownership, but I think he's just so much clearly the number one wide receiver in this offense. I want some Golladay. On the flip side there, I can't trust the running games for either one of these teams, but, I mean, everything's going to come down to Jackson and Jeffrey and the injuries and stuff, so if those guys are all out again, yeah, Zach Ertz is going to be one of the top 2 tight ends on the board. You got to go that route. But Nelson Aguilar, he was already seeing, a ton of snaps anyway, even with Jackson and Jeffrey healthy. And now if those guys are out, he'll be your second leading target hog in this offense behind Ertz, and it's a good price tag. In fact, looking at it, is it really 3.6K on DraftKings?
3.6K after 11-107 and a touchdown. And don't forget, if you watch that game, he had a pass go right through his hands there towards the end of the game that he would have walked into the end zone. So you're looking at 9 catches, probably 160 yards and 2 touchdowns, and everybody's playing him. So price actually went down after that last game somehow.
Good for them for doing these salaries so damn early for degenerates like us to look at it right when we lose that showdown slate that they get. But it's all, he was already getting snaps. He's going to kill a bunch of targets here in this game if those guys are or if those guys are scratches. So Aguilar and Ertz, man, you better get on that train in this guy. I can see this game being a sneaky shootout because Detroit's going to have to pass the ball. They're not going to run that ball on Philadelphia and vice versa. Philly's not going to run the ball on Detroit. So this game has sneaky shootout potential.
Yeah, I agree. Total's a little higher than I thought it would be. It's sitting at 47 right now. So, Chop, any thoughts there? And you got Eagles -7 at home. You laying any money on either of those?
That 7 seems pretty good. I'm going to go with that over because it does seem a bit high, and I don't mind taking Vegas for what it's worth. And sometimes they throw these out there and they confuse you. They're seeing something a lot of people aren't. I think it could go over. No, Philly's not shutting anybody down with that secondary, and I don't think anybody's shutting Philly down at this point.
I think I'm on the Lions with the points here. I don't mind the over. Again, when a number seems higher than you think it would be, that tends to be, oh, go with it. It's higher for some reason, so I agree with you there. But I don't mind the Lions with 7 points here. I think they can keep the game close. Derek, -7, 47. Any strong takes?
Chop made a great point. I always love taking the over when we have two teams that shouldn't be able to run the ball. Our passing is going to lead to bigger plays on average, and it's going to lead to more clock stoppages. So, yeah, I like the over.
All right, let's move on to the afternoon. Slate is the word I was trying to come up with earlier while I fumbled and struggled and hesitated. So a 5-game slate here in the afternoon. First game for us, Carolina and Arizona. Obviously, the big story here, Cam Newton, does not sound like he's going to play this week. Didn't look great in that last game. Something's going on. So no clarification yet as of this recording on Tuesday afternoon. But I'm expecting Kyle Allen to be there, Derek, and $4,000 is the price on Kyle Allen. Talked about this earlier on a show. I think he's more than viable at $4,000 against this defense. It's not good, that plays at a fast pace, surrounded by weapons. Samuel, Moore, McCaffrey, Olsen. I think Kyle Allen, very intriguing here. Am I nuts at $4,000 place of Kyle Allen?
No, you're not nuts at all. This is a week where I do want to pay up at running back, so obviously spending down at quarterback and tight end makes a lot of sense. So at 4K against the fastest-paced team in the NFL, indoors, I love the spot for him. As for Cam Newton, poor guy. I mean, Twitter's just killing him. I saw, one of the things is, Christian McCaffrey wide open for a 5-yard pass, and then posted the GIF of some NBA player throwing a full court shot way over the backboard. Then they post him a picture of him with his rookie season, and then a picture of him last week with that outfit on, saying something about CTE. And oh man, the poor guy. Don't know what's wrong with him, mentally, physically.
To be fair, when you bust out that kind of scarf, you bring that on yourself. Come on.
I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with him, but Kyle Allen, if he's the quarterback, you definitely want him. If Cam's the quarterback, I don't think you can go there, but I do think you can still play the pass catchers if Newton is active. Moore and Samuel both saw a ton of targets. We know they're going to run more plays since it is against Arizona. Samuel had 234 air yards in week 2. That's the most of any player so far in any game this season. Greg Olson's only 3,700 coming off of that big game. So I like some of the pass catchers here. And then obviously Christian McCaffrey is a guy that we want to play regardless of who's behind center for Carolina. He's going to get a lot of dump offs, going to get a lot of work, great bounce back spot. And they're playing on like 10 days rest. So I think they've had some extra time to get ready for this matchup. We know Arizona's still missing a couple pieces in their secondary. So really like the spot for the Panthers. And then hard not to like the spot for the Cardinals as well. Kyler Murray's looked good. He's thrown for over 300 yards in both games, including one on the road against Baltimore. We know he's going to air it out, and we've yet to see rushing upside from him. Still only 5,800 on DraftKings. I think his price is only going to go up from here. So going to be one of my favorite quarterback options. Not really sure I want to play David Johnson just because he hasn't been getting a ton of work, but he's seen the snaps, so maybe this is a breakout spot for him. This is one of the few games where they should actually be, not, trailing with a big deficit. And then I like the Kirk play quite a bit. He's getting a lot of air yards right now. I think he went for over 100 last week against Baltimore, so should be able to get that or more against Carolina. And Fitz is playing well, so if you want to do a triple stack with Murray, Fitz, and Kirk, I don't mind it.
Sneaky name for you. Demir Bird is playing a ton of snaps for this team. 7 targets in each of the first 2 games. He's minimum price.
Stole my thunder, man.
Okay, well I'll go a different direction. I got a challenge.
Too late now.
You.
The cat's out of the bag.
No. This will be even better. I got a challenge for you. The next time that you do a show with Dean, you got to get him to wear this Cam Newton scarf.
Okay.
See if you can pull it off.
Fair enough.
So there you go. That's the challenge.
That is a good challenge. Well, the challenge is getting that guy to do a show with me. He done booted me off, man. He won't let me back on the schedule.
We're going to make that happen with the scarf. So we'll
True
see what
story.
we can do. Chop thoughts here, Panthers and Cardinals.
I was going to say Demir Bird for $3K, man, getting a lot of snaps. He didn't He was not affected by Crabtree being active last week. He's still getting those targets. I would look at Damiere Byrd as a great cash game play, but I don't play much cash game anymore. So, but Damiere Byrd look good, and I agree with a lot of it. Did Derek actually? Did I get the Derek stat that Christian McCaffrey has played 100% of the snaps this year for Carolina?
I did not say that.
Oh,
so.
you saved it for me. You saved it. Christian McCaffrey has played 100% of the snaps this year for Carolina. That's a pretty good number. That's the kind of stuff you want right there. So, yeah, he's going to be a force week in and week out. I do one season-long league with my friends that we've done since 1998, I believe. And I had the second pick, and I reached for Kamara instead of McCaffrey, and I'm kicking myself in the ass for that one, man. So that's what that's all about. But I agree with everything Derek said. I think this is a good game. I don't mind the DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel. Somebody's going to have a good game. On the flip side, Kirk's been good. You guys talking about Kyle Allen, I'm really torn on that one because he played really briefly last year before he got hurt when he was starting for I think Cam went out. I don't know if he was the first man up or the second man up, but he got a start. And he looked good for a quarter, and then he got hurt, and he went out. So it looked good, and he's cheap. But, man, I remember Kyle Allen in college, and he was putrid. So I'm really torn on that one. I don't know if I could go that route. We had to bench him at the University of Houston there in his last year.
4K, though.
I know, man. That's why I say I'm torn. I love a good cheap price tag. I don't know, man. So, I'm sure tournaments, I'll take a shot at him for sure, but otherwise, I'm in agreement with Derek on this one. Give me some Kirk, some DJ Moore, run them back on the same tournament team.
And he didn't give you the stat of McCaffrey, but he did give you all the air yards for Samuel. You got to like that, Chop. We know how you
those
I like them air yards.
I bring them from Chop.
Let me see where – I got an air yards for you here in a minute. We're not to that guy yet, though.
You're bringing an air yards to the table?
I actually heard one here the other day. So
all right, nice. All right, let's look at the spread. Carolina -1.5 here. I think that will change if Cam is out. I think you'd see the line probably flip to Arizona -1.5. So I would jump on it now. I think the Cardinals win this one at home. So I'll gladly take the points now. Total's 45.5. Chop, any thoughts on either of those?
It's hard for me to pick one of these two teams because I think they're pretty even. I think the spread's fine. So I'm going to go with the over because of the high pace, and I don't think Carolina's defense is not nearly as good as it's been in years past. I'll take the over in this game.
Kyle Allen, 4 touchdown passes here, so that over is going to be easy, baby. Derek, thoughts here, -1.5 or the total?
Give me the Cardinals money line regardless of who plays the quarterback for Carolina, and give me the over if Cam is their quarterback.
There you go. Next game, another replacement quarterback. Eli Manning has finally been benched. Probably the last we're going to see of Eli Manning. Daniel Jones taking over for the New York Giants, going to Tampa here. Chop, let's go to you. Daniel Jones, 5K on DraftKings, but only 6,000 on FanDuel. So another guy that the price really stands out as a cheap option. Do you dare go with Daniel Jones at a 6K price point on FanDuel?
This is another one. It's gonna tear me up trying to make this decision as the week goes on because it's a good cheap price tag. I just don't, the guy had a good preseason. I've seen a guy like Dak Prescott have a great preseason and everybody's on that train and he goes in and he absolutely, crushes, man, and he's really good. But then we've seen the flip side of that too, where the guy crushes preseason, finally gets some playing time, or actually never even gets playing time because he just sucks, period, and he just did it in preseason. I don't know about Daniel Jones. This is going to be a tough one. He certainly has a decent enough matchup here. I'm probably less likely to play Jones and more likely to upgrade Saquon Barkley, Evan Ingram, and if Sterling Shepard is healthy, then Sterling Shepard. Rather than play Jones, I would rather play one of those guys and think that they get a bigger boost because I just don't know if I trust Jones all the way. But he's certainly got to be better than Eli, right? I mean, that was rough watching this. That was rough. By the way, is Eli a Hall of Famer?
No, don't even stop.
Come on, man.
No.
He's got a 500 record in his career. 116 and 116 for wins and losses.
No.
I don't know, man. We're putting a lot of weight on some Super Bowls, ain't we?
Yeah, you won 2 Super Bowls. Great. No, not a Hall of Famer. Not even close. Come on, get out of here with that.
I'm kind of in your boat too, man. If it's so funny how some of the guys, analysts, really want to hold Super Bowls in such high regard as if that's really a valid thing. It's not, man. The guy could very easily be 0-2 in those 2 Super Bowls. Tyree caught one off of his face mask, and I don't know. I'm with you though. So Tampa Bay, I think, is in a great spot here. This has got to be, like, Winston's looked terrible for 2 games, but this has got to be the game where he just completely busts out. I know they won last week, but it wasn't because of Winston. I mean, he was very, very – it's probably below average. So this has got to be the game where he gets it together. I like Winston. I love Mike Evans in this game where everybody thinks Chris Godwin is the number 1, and maybe he is. This is the week I'm going Mike Evans. So give me some Winston to Evans in this one.
We have seen the flip. Godwin now more expensive on both sites. 76 to 71 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings 69 to 66. So I agree with you. The other one is what are we doing with O.J. Howard? I mean, the guy was hyped as a top 6 tight end, top 4 by a lot of people. I mean, we've got the dude's playing fullback. I don't know what's going on with him. No targets last week, 5 in that first game. He's only 3,800 on DraftKings. Derek, a lot in this game. Daniel Jones, I want you to hit on how high is Saquon in the ranks this week. But this Tampa Bay team, is it Godwin? Is it Evans? And what the hell do we do with O.J. Howard?
Yeah, I agree with Chop. Let's take a wait-and-see approach with Daniel Jones, but he certainly can't be worse than Eli. So got to give the Giants offense a small boost as a whole. Love Saquon. He's going to be involved regardless of the score, regardless of, how well Daniel Jones plays. So he's another guy that I want to pay up for a running back. Don't really know who Jones's favorite targets are going to be, so I'll probably pass on Shepard and Ingram. And maybe if Shepard's out, you could look to Benny Fowler. He's already got 15 targets this season, but it was with Eli under center, so it's kind of tough to predict that moving forward. Love the Bucks though. Winston 5,400, great price point. Giants have given up 640 yards through the air in 2 weeks. You can pair him up with Chris Godwin. You mentioned, he's higher priced than Evans. He's going to be higher owned as well, but he's looked like a beast. Anytime you get a slot role player in Bruce Arians' offense, you got to take advantage of it. So I do like Godwin again, but love the pivot to Mike Evans in tournaments. Provides a lot of leverage in that same offense. He's still getting the looks. He's still getting the air yards and all that good stuff. So I do like Evans in tournaments. And I won't be playing O.J. Howard. Just tight ends at Bruce Arians' offense just haven't been great, and he's unable to break that mold so far. So no O.J. Howard for me. And if you really need the value running back, I don't hate Peyton Barber. 65% of the snaps in week 2. They're home favorites. Great matchup. Only 4,600.
All right, -7 here for Tampa Bay. 48 the total, Derek. You like either of those?
I think Jones is going to give the Giants enough to keep this game close, so I'll take the points on the road.
Shot, -7, 48-point total.
I think Jones is going to give enough of a boost to make this game go over, so I'll take the over.
All right, and I will take the Giants. I think they hang in this game. I think Jones is an upgrade. I love that FanDuel price, so perfectly fine playing him and loading up. But I think we get a close, tight battle here. Do love the Tampa Bay bounce back, though, and I love the Evans call. Nobody wants to play him. Everybody wants Godwin. O.J. Howard, I'm going to wait and see. I'm more of a frustrated season-long dynasty owner here with O.J. Howard. I don't think you need to go there in daily fantasy this week. All right, next game for us. 3 games to go here on the DFS OGs podcast right here on RotoGrinders. Houston and the Chargers. Houston got it done, survived barely. The Chargers' tough loss in Detroit. So 2 teams coming off of tight games here. Eckler's been the story here, Chop. It's been phenomenal. Do we just go back to the well, keep playing him? Price on Eckler up to 7,200 on DraftKings. Has he reached the price ceiling? He's in that Dalvin Cook area, or you still have some interest at that price?
I still have a lot of interest in him. I'm treating him as if if this was Melvin Gordon in there, without much competition, we'd be treating Gordon as a tier 1 running back for this offense. So I think we got to treat Eckler like that because he's the number 1 guy here. And I know Justin Jackson gets a little bit of work, but Eckler's still the guy, especially pass catching. So I'm treating him as a tier 1. I think it's a good price tag for him. Houston is not a good defense in particular. It's a pretty good total here. 48's a pretty nice total. I think Eckler's fine. Keenan Allen's getting a lot of action in this offense. Hunter Henry out and Mike Williams was banged up. Mike Williams looked good last week, but he was questionable. So I don't know how that – but Keenan Allen's a stud. it's the Houston side I'm a little bit worried about because the Chargers defense is pretty good. So I don't know. Hopkins is going to draw a tough matchup, and just the passing game in general is going to draw a tough matchup. And so I don't know how to treat that one. And then Duke Johnson isn't the bell cow back here. It doesn't look like. It doesn't look like they're just going to turn the keys to the car over to Duke, and I think he's got to really fight through some Carlos Hyde carries there. So I'm not sure I want to play the backfield either, but I think you could always pair Deshaun Watson with either Nuke or Fuller and be fine with it. And on the flip side, Rivers to Allen or Eckler as your running back is perfectly fine. It's just a good real life game. I don't know if it's as good a fantasy game for me.
Yeah, that's the bottom line for me. This will be a fun game to watch, but fantasy-wise, I don't know that I want to go crazy on this one. And why not trade a third-round pick for Duke Johnson and then give 20 carries to Carlos Hyde? It makes sense. So tough split there in the backfield. Derek, main thing I want to know here, Austin Eckler, overpriced, underpriced, a guy you want to target this week or not?
I think he is appropriately priced. I wouldn't call him a must-play like he kind of was the first 2 weeks, but, we got Dalvin Cook right there, and then you have the three workhorses at the very top in Barkley, Zeke, and McCaffrey. So I wouldn't call him a must play. The fact that he did, fumble on the 1 yard line does worry me a little bit. Maybe that role goes to Jackson, but from what we've seen so far, it's been a 75-25 split. And you mentioned his role catching the ball out of the backfield. So I still think he's very firmly in play here. Pretty good matchup against Houston as well. And then Keenan Allen leads all receivers in air yards this season. We think of him as a guy that just gets a lot of short routes, but Rivers doesn't have anyone else to throw the ball to. So I think Allen's firmly in play at $7K. He's already got 25 targets, 220 receiving yards so far this season. I really like the Chargers defense as well. We know they can get pressure on the quarterback, and Texans are dead last in adjusted sack rate through the first 2 weeks. We know Deshaun Watson likes to hold on to the ball, try to make more plays. So really like the spot for the Chargers defense. For the Texans, yeah, you guys mentioned the running backs. Hyde's going to get the carries, and Duke Johnson, he's fighting for carries and he's fighting for targets now that QT's back as well. He gets a lot of those short dump offs as well. So for me, Hopkins is fine in tournaments. I'll always have a little bit of him, but I really like Will Fuller. 243 air yards through the first 2 weeks. Hayward's probably going to be following Hopkins around, so I like the deep threat with Will Fuller.
All right, I really like the Keenan Allen call. One of my favorite receivers this week. He's right in that Godwin area. I think people are going to want to play Antonio Brown, but $7K is his lowest price we've seen all season on DraftKings, so love that call. Let's look at the spread, -3.5 for the Chargers. 48 the total here, Derek. You like either of those?
Ooh, this one's tough. I feel like they're both pretty efficient, so I don't have a strong take on the line or the total.
Yeah, I would lean more towards the under. I don't know that we get a shootout here. I could see it in the the mid 40s. This one also seems a little bit higher than I thought it would be, but no strong lean for me on either one either. Chop, any strong leans for you here on the spread or the total?
It's not strong, but I don't think it's more than a field goal game. So I'll take the Houston Texans here.
All right, 2 games left. Let's move on. New Orleans going to Seattle. We saw New Orleans struggle. Obviously, Drew Brees is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. So Teddy Bridgewater / Taysom Hill in at quarterback. I think you will see some Taysom Hill packages in Seattle. Big road win going into Pittsburgh and getting things done. Carson, couple fumbles. We got to keep an eye on that, but the passing game looked good. Russell Wilson with 3 touchdowns. Lockett, ton of targets. Metcalf looked good as well. So, Chop, thoughts here. Saints on the road with Teddy Bridgewater. Kamara burned us last week. He's in that elite tier of running backs price-wise. I think ownership, he'll be by far the lowest. Do we go back to the well here? Are you worried about this offense with no Drew Brees?
Oh, I'm extremely worried about this offense. I don't even know how much I can trust these guys now. I mean, Michael Thomas, how can Michael Thomas be better than he was with Drew Brees? I don't think that's possible. So we're getting all these guys priced as if Drew Brees is the quarterback when it's Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah, I'm very leery of this offense, man. They could really come out and lay an egg. I just don't think Bridgewater is all that particularly good. That's why he's been a backup for a few years now. I didn't even think he was that good when he was the starter in Minnesota out there before he got hurt. So I don't know. I think they're all downgraded. It's tough for me to trust these guys, but I mean, if you twist my arm, I guess we could go Kamara and hope that it's just a bunch of check down city for him and he gets loose. But Seattle is interesting because I think they're at home. At home, they're more likely to have a pretty decent offensive game here. And I'm kind of leaning towards. I told you I had a little air yard stat for you. I kind of like. I know Derek knows this one. He knows I'm about to.
Please.
He knows I'm about to bust out the old DK Metcalf.
Yep.
DK Metcalf has over half this team's total air yards. The total air yard percentage. Like he's got like 53% of this team's. So Tyler Lockett's running these short routes, and Metcalf is going deep. And Metcalf, he's getting targets. He's getting them deep. It's only a matter of time before he connects. I don't think he has like this great consistent rookie year, but I think he's going to have 2 or 3 games in here where he's a slate winner. So I don't know, man. I think he's going to get loose eventually. I'll take a shot on him this week. I didn't want to believe him coming out of college. You know, everybody was all riding him and stuff like, oh, this guy's so huge. Look at that. He's so fast. You know, I don't buy into all that because he really wasn't all that productive in college, but he's starting to make some plays, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So I'll take a shot on old DK Metcalf this weekend. You know, the other guys are always fine. Lockett's fine. Chris Carson's fine, but I kind of like the price tag on Metcalf.
Yeah, it is a nice price, and he's doing what he did in college. That's how they're using him. You go down the field, we're going to throw it up to you. You're gonna out muscle everybody. So love that call, 4,700. On Metcalf. Derek, your thoughts? Kamara mainly on the Saints side. Any interest in Bridgewater? Taysom Hill, I think will be in. It's hard to play him though in DFS. And then Seattle. Is it passing game? Do we trust Carson, or do you think Penny's eating into some of that workload after the fumbles?
Well, Chop, I know you won the Millie Maker last week, but I've never been more proud of you than busting out that air yard stat. Yeah, Metcalf, he's going to be a guy I like as well. $1,500 discount over Lockett. And you got to think Lattimore is going to spend more time on Lockett than he is on Metcalf. At least that's what I would think. I would love to target the running game here, but Carson lost 2 fumbles last week against Pittsburgh. He's already lost 3 on the season. We know Pete Carroll loves ball security, so that worries me. I think Penny and Procise are going to be more involved. So for me, just Metcalf on the Seahawks, and then yeah, the cash game side of me says to fade everything from the Saints, and then the tournament side of me says maybe it's a good week to load up on Alvin Kamara. Everyone wants to pay up at running back, but as we mentioned, there's a lot of elite running backs that are going to get ownership, and nobody's going to be playing him after he let everyone down against the Rams. So I'll have some shares of Kamara, and that's pretty much it for the Saints.
Yeah, Kamara will be one I debate all the way till Sunday. You know, 1 minute I look at the ownership potential, so I want to grab it. The other time it's hard to make the case for him over McCaffrey in a good bounce back spot, Cook, Eckler, even Elliott. So we'll see. That one I'm going to debate, but intrigued in tournaments nonetheless. Let's take a look at the spread here. It was a little bit lower than I thought it would be. Seattle -4.5, 44.5 the total. Derek, you like either of those?
I don't. I don't like the Seahawks team very much, but playing at home against Bridgewater just looked terrible last week. So I'll take the Seahawks.
Yeah, I'm more on Seattle -4.5. I thought that would be about 6. I still think that may get bet up closer to a touchdown as we get closer to game time. So I'll take Seattle here. Chop, you like either the spread or the total here?
Seattle's gotten real lucky so far this year. They started off with Andy Dalton. Then they get their next quarterback they face gets injured, and now Drew Brees is injured. So they've been pretty fortunate right here. So I think it's going to be a sloppy game for New Orleans. But then I don't think Seattle's great on offense right now. So I'm going to take the under here.
All right, speaking of one of those quarterbacks, Mason Rudolph was the guy Seattle faced last week in our last game here. He takes the Steelers out to San Francisco to take on the 2-0 San Francisco 49ers, who have looked great, you know, really throttled Tampa Bay. More of that was on defense, and then we saw the offense really unleash in week 2 at Cincinnati. So coming back home against Pittsburgh, Derek, the problem is they have about 9 running backs that they're using right now. You know, Breida looks great, averages over 10 yards a carry. Mostert's ripping off long TD runs, had one called back. Jeff Wilson Jr. is getting goal line carries for this team. So as much as I want to attack this Pittsburgh defense, is there a running back you prefer here? And then we go to the wide receivers. There's no more clarity there either. You know, Goodwin gets a long touchdown. Deebo Samuel, probably my favorite of the group, but didn't play a ton of snaps. Pettis, who knows? Kittle, I think, is the one consistent here. So what way are we going here with San Francisco? Because there's a lot of moving parts to this offense. And in Pittsburgh, you trust Mason Rudolph. James Conner, it seems like he's going to be in play. If anything, James Washington, very familiar with Mason Rudolph, back to their college days. He's intriguing. So a lot in play here, Steelers and Niners.
Yeah, for the Niners, I expect them to put up a lot of points here, but I just don't know which route I want to take in terms of, targeting them in DFS. You mentioned the three-way split at running back. Last week, Mostert played 47% of the snaps, Breida 29, Wilson 21. For what it's worth, Breida didn't get a touch in the fourth quarter since that game was out of hand a little bit. They just are priced up, so I don't really want to take my chances there. Kind of the same thing with the wide receivers. Even Pettis ended up playing around 50% of the snaps last week, so that kind of cuts into the work of the other receivers. For me, I kind of like the Niners defense. They've had a really good front seven. They're facing a rookie quarterback making his first NFL start, and he's on the road. So give me some Niners defense here. For the Steelers, probably just going to be a wait-and-see approach. You mentioned the shower narrative with Rudolph and Washington. If you want to play that, you can. But I just don't really love a lot for Pittsburgh.
All right, Chop, wrap us up here, Steelers and Niners.
Notorious pulling out the saw his ding dong in college, and now they're best buddies, and he's going to throw to him narrative. I like it, man. I like it a lot. I mean, who was it last week that somebody last week, was it the Rams golf? Oh, Cooks was playing New Orleans again, and that play was clearly supposed to be called a running play, and Goff took it upon himself to pull that ball, or not even fake the run, just threw a quick one to Cooks just to get him that touchdown against the Saints. Total narrative. I'm buying into it, so I'm buying into the shower. That's an extra bond right there, man. You walk around in that shower in college before you become millionaires. Yeah, you're definitely throwing the ball to James Washington there, man. So that's about the only play I can come up with for Pittsburgh, because I'm not going to play Juju with this quarterback. Mason Rudolph is terrible in at the pro level so far, so I don't want to do that. Connor's banged up. I can't. Yeah, I think James Washington might be the only guy I could play over there. And for the Niners, I love the defensive call. I think that's a solid play this week. George Kittle, I think it's time for him to wake up. I know he had those touchdowns called back in week 1, but even then, week 2, he came back and that was a lot of points they put up last week, and he got none of it. So it's George Kittle time right now, if you ask me. I'm going to be a lot on George Kittle, especially at that price tag. He took a little price bump there, or price went down a little bit. So like me some Kittle. Hate that the running backs are like a 5-headed monster. I'll pass on those guys. So I think I'm looking at me some Kittle, some Frisco defense, and some James Washington shower narrative.
There you go. And that'll wrap us up. We'll end on that narrative there. So week 3 in the books here for the DFS OGs podcast. Guys, any final thoughts here? Any must plays, favorite value play, whatever you want to wrap us up with here. Chop, what do you got?
Yeah, I don't have much of a favorite play yet. It's early in the week. Everything's going to depend on how these injuries shake out. So let's see how that shakes out. But last week I heard a lot of people saying how tough it was and how much they lost and stuff. I mean, you have to ride through those. Those are weeks that are going to happen. So we'll get back to where, your picks start to click a little bit some weeks, and maybe this is one of those weeks. So don't get too depressed that you had a really rough second week, because everybody that I've talked to, just about except for Notorious, he's the only one who won last week. Everybody else lost. So don't get too down on yourself, man.
Yeah, it happens. It's a week-to-week game. So, like I said, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you move back. One thing to keep in mind, the popular build this week is going to be cheap quarterback, cheap pass catchers, and really loading up on the stud running back. So I like that build in cash early on in tournaments. Don't be afraid to get some Mahomes, some Lamar Jackson, and go a little bit cheaper at running back, and just be different than the crowd in tournaments. So I would certainly have some exposure to those running backs, not fading them completely, but always looking to build differently than what the general public is doing. So, Derek, wrap us up here, buddy. Final thoughts for week 3.
Yeah, I was going to say load up on those expensive running backs. So
that's fine.
Maybe that's what everyone else is going to do as well. But I'll end with a bold call. I'll say Will Fuller, over 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Bam. I like it. All the air yards are going to pay off here in week 3. All right, that'll do it, guys. Appreciate you guys for listening, for tuning in. We appreciate it. You can hit us up on Twitter with any questions that you may have, and we'll all be on different shows and articles and things with our expanded thoughts throughout the week here. But again, thank you for listening here for Notorious, for headChopper. I am Beer saying salut. Best of luck here in week 3, guys, and we'll see you right back here for week 4 on the DFS OGs podcast here on RotoGrinders. See ya.